What do you know about mitigating circumstances as provided for under Article 13 of the Revised Penal Code? If there is mitigating circumstances or mitigating circumstance present in the commission of the crime, what will happen to the penalty if the accused is convicted of the crime charge? So that's the topic we were going to discuss today, and mitigating circumstance. If you take it of its meaning, it simply means that the presence of mitigating circumstance in commission of crime will mitigate criminal liability. That means that the penalty imposed by law will be much lower, much lower than that fixed. Say, for example, if the crime of murder has a penalty of reclusion perpetua, that's not murder. Let's talk about homicide. The penalty, because the penalty of reclusion perpetua, if I say, is 20 to 40 years and it cannot be divided, so we'll go to homicide. Homicide is has a penalty of 12 to 20 years in its consummated stage. Now, if there is mitigating circumstances in commission of the crime of homicide, the 6 to tw- no 12 to 20 years is divided into three periods. That means that if the crime is committed with mitigating circumstance and without aggravating circumstance, the one one mitigating circumstance and there's no aggravating, the crime or the penalty could be imposed in its medium period. So that is, if it's 12 to 20, then the penalty is, the maximum will be around that 12 to 14. That's a similar maximum. And then if you apply another law, the minimum period will be lower than that 12 years. So the effect generally of mitigating circumstance is to lower the penalty imposed upon the accused if he will found guilty of the crime charge and there is mitigating circumstance. So moving on, paragraph 1 of the article mitigating circumstances, article 13, is incomplete self-defense, incomplete defense of relatives, incomplete defense of stranger. That's the essence of paragraph 1. There is a self-defense, but the self-defense is incomplete. That means there could be unlawful aggression, and there was no the means employed to repel or prevent the unlawful aggression is not reasonable. So, or the provocation is given by the person attacked, so it's incomplete self-defense. Incomplete defense of stranger or incomplete defense of relatives, there is unlawful aggression but the means employed is not reasonable. So gisumbag lang imuhang paryente, imo na yung say for example stab or shoot him. The means employed is unreasonable considering also the circumstances. You also consider the circumstances of the means employed. So if by shooting the attacker it's unreasonable, if stabbing the attacker is unreasonable under the situation, then the the self-defense is incomplete. The elements of self-defense is incomplete. Now you have to remember that in incomplete self-defense, the unlawful aggression must always be present. Yeah, in incomplete self-defense, there must be unlawful aggression, and if the majority of the elements are present, then that could be a privilege mitigating circumstances. Now, under Article 13, these circumstances are ordinary mitigating circumstances. It affects only the periods to which the penalty will be imposed. Later on, we will know that there is a privilege mitigating circumstances where the degree of the penalty imposed will be affected, and if the privilege mitigating circumstance is applied, the next lower in degree as a penalty will be imposed. So that's the difference. Uh, Paragraph 1 of Article 13 speaks about incomplete, justifying, and exempting circumstances. I will correct myself. It's not incomplete self-defense only. It's incomplete, justifying, and exempting circumstances. You remember justifying circumstance, the self-defense, the defense of stranger, and the other justifying circumstance we have discussed. Now, justifying circumstance is if I can, if you will remember, uh, self-defense, defense of relatives, defense of stranger, avoidance of greater evil, performance of duty or exercise of right, and obedience to the lawful order. Those are justifying circumstances. And if the elements thereof are incomplete, then you may you may invoke mitigating circumstance, or the accused may invoke mitigating circumstance. How about exempting any of the circumstances under exempting circumstance? If any of their elements is missing, then that would be uh, incomplete exempting circumstance. By the way, there's no incomplete insanity, because it's between whether you are insane or sane. So it's it's not possible to have incomplete insanity. So that's it. Incomplete under paragraph 1, incomplete justifying and exempting circumstance. Now, if your defense is self-defense and you cannot prove all the elements of self-defense, the other elements that you have proven may still be used as mitigating circumstance. Mitigate mo gamay ang penalty. Okay? The second paragraph speaks about the offender is under 18. So we already discussed this. If the offender is minor, below 15 or below, then he is exempted. There's no qualifications there. If the minor is over 15 but under 18, he is still exempted. But if he acted with discernment, then he will be proceeded in accordance with law. That is, he will go to trial. But still, if he will be found guilty, the sentence will be suspended and he will go intervention. So generally, minor exempted if acted with discernment, above 15 or below 18, and below 18, then he will be proceeded with proceedings for minors. So Article 2 is already amended by law on Juvenile Justice Act. That's RA 9344. So Paragraph 3, the offender had no intention to commit such grave along as that of committed. So ang iyang intention is not is different from what resulted. So iya lang say for example, iya lang sumbag, and then that person fell to the ground, the head bump or hit the iliac, and then the person died as a result thereof. Now, punching is an evil, or a, of course, it's unlawful act. It's an act of aggression. If you are not defending yourself and you just punch another person, that's unlawful aggression. So, if, say for example, your intention is to just punch and the person died, your intention is not to kill the person, it's just to hurt the person, to commit physical injury against the person. But the person died. That's why you can invoke the mitigating circumstance of no intention to commit grave offense as a result. So you can invoke that mitigating circumstances. Uh, of course, the act of punching is unlawful aggression, but the consequences went beyond what is intended by the person. So that's it. You can invoke the mitigating circumstances. You will still face criminal responsibility and criminal liability for your actions. You have to understand that every actions you will take, you will face responsibility thereof. You cannot just blame any other person. You, certainly, you cannot blame the victim for dying because he is weak. No, you will face the consequences of your action. You will face personal responsibility for your action, and no one else will face them except you. So that's why you have to be very, very cautious of your action. That sometimes that could change your life for better or for worse. We will move on to the next circumstances on the next videos, because it will not fit on 15-minute period or limit allowed. We'll see you next time.